Welcome to Masters of Product Management, a show that gives you real-world techniques and cutting-edge strategies to learn, apply, and succeed in product management. Now, here's the master himself, Stephen Haines.
Welcome back, everyone. One of the things that product managers, and I'm sure others, have to deal with is an absence of solid leadership. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but we've all experienced this at one point or another. In an earlier podcast, one of my guests talked about a concept. She referred to it as bad bossing and its impact on product managers from the standpoint of either things like effective coaching or even employee motivation and other things. I was recently talking to my longtime friend and professional colleague, Rich Mironov, about this. And Rich has developed some very, very interesting insights on the topic. And so I thought it would be a really good idea to talk about that today. So I'd like to welcome Rich to the show. How are you, Rich?
Thanks, Rick. I'm terrific. Thanks, Stephen.
That's good. And we're talking from two coasts, but the magic of technology, we love this, right? Anyway, Rich, one of the things that we talked about the other day had to do with an absence of either like a product leader or some head of product or product management. What are some of the things that you're seeing today?
We raised this because I think I'm seeing a whole pattern here, at least with some companies, where there just isn't someone at the head of the product organization. In my mind, I'm sort of calling it the no head of product syndrome. Oh, and because it's come up a bunch of times, at least I've seen it. And I think the issue is that individual product managers who don't have a strong supporting organization that they're part of have a lot of problems where they can't work themselves individually out of the issues. A few of these, like if we don't have a strong product strategy across our whole portfolio, then every one of the product managers is wrestling for the same set of resources or forcing their product to be the profitable one so it doesn't get canceled. Likewise, sometimes we talk about shipping our org chart, where every single group has a different name and a different pricing scheme and a different release schedule and a different theory for how their products work. And customers have to piece it all together again. And you can sort of read the company organization chart right off the price list. And those are examples.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It sounds so like Darwinian, like there's a survival of the fittest. Is this what you're seeing?
Well, more that there will be some really, really strong product managers who can survive and thrive in this situation, but I think I see most of the folks in the product function failing. So if they individually lack the ability to, for instance, say no to the VP of sales for some special request that doesn't make a lot of sense, and individually they're not able to negotiate the boundaries of their jobs so that engineering wants more than 100% of them and, to be in every single stand-up in Scrum, and sales wants more than 100% to be in every single customer meeting and demonstration, et cetera. Individual product managers are going to have trouble negotiating things like job descriptions and boundaries and product names and priorities because it's sort of one up or two up from the place they are. And they're going to struggle mightily. Some will succeed, but I think, I'm seeing whole teams, dozens and scores of product managers at bigger companies that are as a group failing because they're not getting the top-down organizational support they need.
Who are they? It's interesting because it gets to the heart of credibility and even their own empowerment. But who are the people who are seeing this or not seeing this? When you're saying that a product organization or a group of product managers is failing, who is seeing the failure?
I think the folks seeing the failure are going to be the one-up stakeholders. So you've got a VP of marketing or product marketing that's not getting the right deliverables out of product. You've got the VP of engineering who's frustrated because his or her teams are complaining about lack of coverage and lack of good inputs. Ultimately, you've got a lot of complaints probably out of the sales organization where it's much harder to close deals and to position products because we're not getting the thoughtful, well-positioned, jobs to be done kind of thinking. We're getting stuff thrown over the wall. So when I hear this, what I hear it from are the partners or the stakeholders who should be sitting next to the head of product, but because that person is missing, they've got really nobody to go to. So I'm an outside resource, and they want me to fix this, to retrain all of the product managers or get them enthused about having business plans that the executive team likes.
Well, it sounds like a typical problem that we deal with as well, because some bosses, especially in different departments, say, "Oh, just train them up. There must be something wrong with them."
Right.
But in fact, leaders there's an accountability here from my point of view, that they have to be stepping up to the plate to coach and develop, not make the product organization a scapegoat organization, but and not a bunch of lackeys either, but really to support them and help them grow and develop so they can do the job that's necessary. But do you think that even higher level leaders can do something with this? I mean, isn't that their remit?
It is the remit. I think it's a one-off problem, though, because if I'm the head of engineering or marketing and I think I can fix this myself by bringing someone in from the outside to do a bunch of training, then I think, that's missing the problem. That's seeing the symptoms but not the root issue. So the remit here, I think the solution is for the rest of the executive team to either recognize or have someone help them recognize that they're missing a key player around the table. That the big kids around the table have a chair that's empty, and that's head of product or VP of product management or chief product officer or something. And that person's going to be responsible for not just good hiring, but good training and mentoring, as well to be the person at the executive team who pushes back when somebody else has a complaint. So, part of this syndrome here, I think for me, is I hear the VP of sales saying product management is not giving me enough support in the executive team meeting, but I don't hear somebody at the table who's equipped to say, no, that's not what's happening. There's a different issue. Don't blame my folks. We're there every step of the way. It must be something else.
You're listening to Masters of Product Management with Stephen Haines from Sequent Learning Networks, sequentlearning.com.
What's very interesting from that point of view is that we can surface this as a particular issue, and of course there are downstream and cross-organizational impacts. And very often I will coach product managers to say, well, in this imperfect world, you have to empower yourself and you have to start taking ownership for some of these things and start leading by yourself. But given that some of these podcasts are really focusing on giving product managers some work tools and maybe some hints for the bosses, what kind of work tool would you suggest, or what could a product manager do to become a bit, to gain some better traction in an environment where it may be a bit more slippery?
Really good question, because we can't simply ignore the fact that this is going on, and people have to find ways to improve their situation. So a few things that I guess I often coach or counsel folks on within your own product scope. It's really, really important to have a crisp set of priorities. And by that, I absolutely mean an absolutely ordered list of stuff. So if we have 1, 2, and 3 things that must get done this quarter, keep that list handy at all times. So when somebody from the sales team interrupts you and you're not planning on it, saying, well, what about X? What about Y? Can't we just slip this in? This is really small and easy. You can immediately refer to your list and say, here's what we as a group have decided is most important. And I love your idea. That's a great idea. Let me put it at the bottom of the backlog where it belongs, and we'll get to it when we get to it. So, the ability to think about how to push back on parts of the organization that have more seniority or more political clout than you've got. Mm-hmm. I think there's a tremendous amount of bridge building that individual product managers can do, particularly the senior ones, where we figure out who the decision makers are, we figure out where the interrupts are likely to come from, we help, we make social connections so that we're anticipating out ahead the need to get some political support or to rally around a good idea. Not to wait for the moment when you need help. You've got to build those bridges months and months in advance.
Absolutely. One of the things that I was thinking about while you were talking, Do you think that this problem exists across companies of all sizes, or do you think it's something that is endemic to smaller or middle-sized companies?
I actually think it's worse at big companies, but there's some flavors here, right? So if we're at a 12 or 20 person startup firm, right, the CEO is probably playing head of product, or somebody else on the founding team is, and there may be a product manager who's more taking direction than, might be the case elsewhere. So that, if you've only got one or maybe two people on the product team, they have to report somewhere and pick a place, engineering or marketing, or to the CEO. We're going to get similar things. I see this starting to creep in, though, when we've got a medium-sized company. If we've got 500 people at the company broken up into 4 business units, so that's 100 and something people each, which means they probably have engineering teams of 20, 30, 40, and a sprinkling of product managers, so 1 or 2 or 3 per business unit. They tend to be wandering through the org chart without a home, without a boss, without a plan. And there's no sense that we need to knit those folks together in any, social or political organization so they can learn from each other and share and trade and grow. And then as we get bigger, I guess I've seen this more at really big companies where the tendency is to put someone in charge of product who actually has no product experience. So I'm in a business unit that's doing healthcare software, and inevitably the person I put in charge of product is somebody who's run a hospital billing department, because maybe we make hospital billing software, on the assumption that subject matter expertise is way more important than product experience. And that person's really unable to evaluate the good work of the product team, mentor anybody, do good business models, or, negotiate with engineering. And they generally bring along a very strong bias that says the hospital I worked at, which is the only one I know, must somehow be representative of all hospitals. So I know how this works. We don't need to go talk to other folks. I'm a subject matter expert, right? We've all seen the SME problem here. So the bigger the organization, the more likely I see that they pull somebody in from some other function and they tap them on the shoulder and make them head of product. But that person really fails to deliver.
It's interesting. This problem is pretty widespread, but not. I actually, when I did research for my managing product management book, I divided up companies into 3 different buckets. There were companies, about a third of them, that did things really, really well and had great alignment and strategies and guided and coached their product managers, and about a third that were in this point of they were basically doing things, but on a journey and, towards some better practices. And there were about a third of companies that just didn't have a clue. And certainly a lot of the companies that you may be encountering where this is problematic is not fully representative of the entire population. And I want to give people hope that this is not, as horrific, but there are some things that we can do about it. And number one is that every product manager should have some accountability for the strategic direction. Where do they want to take this product, and how do they align and bring people together around their vision? And you don't necessarily need a boss to do that, but a boss will certainly support you and guide you and, help you gain access to their leaders, because their bosses want cogent, aligned, well-constructed strategies. And a lot of the things tend to fall out from that. Their ability to prioritize, their ability to focus, their ability to build their teams. And so when the thing I think that's really critical is have specific goals, have some sense of a strategy and some sense of direction, and rally people around that so that you don't become victimized by this environment. And it's certainly hard. It's like pushing a big rock up a hill, but I think that there are really a lot of tools that are available to product people to be able to do that.
I think that's spot on. And back to your previous point, I have a very, very biased sample here. So honestly, nobody calls me up, in the middle of the night to say, my product management team's working great. We don't need any help. Of course. Come over and spend some days with us and tell us it's all going really well. Yes. I'm the particular kind of surgeon who only deals with a particular kind of illness. And so,
That's pretty funny.
I'm seeing perhaps a warped view of life here. So there's a lot of hope out there. There's a tremendous number of product management folks who are succeeding both at the individual level and at the director and VP level that have great support from their CEOs and executive teams. And mostly they're not calling me.
Well, that's a good thing. Anyway, Rich, I really want to thank you for sharing some of these perspectives today. We don't operate in a perfect world all the time, and even the tide of activity and better practices in companies, they ebb and they flow. And sometimes we get caught up in that undertow. And if we get caught up in that undertow as product managers, it's incumbent on us to really try to not necessarily swim against the undertow as they teach us, but swim sort of parallel to the shoreline, gain your bearings, and then figure out which direction you want to go in. And I think that is the hope that we offer people when they may seem that they're adrift and they're not getting the kind of leadership and bossing that they deserve. So thanks again, Rich, for this great conversation. And I hope you'll join us next time on Masters of Product Management.
This has been Masters of Product Management with Stephen Haines, but it doesn't end there. Just visit sequentbusiness.net to gain access to all of our shows and subscribe. That way you'll never miss an episode. It's all there at sequentbusiness.net. We'll talk to you next time on Masters of Product Management. Learn, apply, and succeed. Sequentlearning.com